Huh?
Hello, everyone. Today, in this podcast, I like to invite Dr. Rajesh Mishra. Dr. Rajesh Mishra is a leading intensivist in the city of Ahmedabad. He has been our past president for ISCCM. In this podcast, we are discussing the traits of intensivists, and especially what we are going to discuss today is intensivist as a polymath. Polymath is a person with knowledge and expertise across multiple disciplines who integrates them meaningfully. In simple terms, he is master of many domains. So the first question to Dr. Mishra is, does modern intensive care demand intensivists as a polymath?
So, yes, thanks for this important concept because polymath is a concept, let me tell you, which is practiced by only 1% of the world top leader who runs the world. Maybe the best today, our richest person in US, Mr. Elon Musk, is a example of polymath. All the people who are very successful and who are very leader, maybe it is Mahatma Gandhi, maybe it is the scientist like everybody wants to become like Da Vinci. He was the first example of polymath. So when I was reading this book and concept, I thought we are the people who are really polymath.
Absolutely.
uh, we are the people who really need to know in we are not like any super specialists like cardiologists or neurologists who are focused only to the brain. They don't see. When you are we want to become a very successful intensivist, you need to know in depth acute physiological change of every system of the body. You cannot say that I will only see hemodynamics or I will see only ventilator part. Then it's not critical care. So first thing about your human body, you need to know in depth, in detail about everything and anything in acute physiological and pathological change, which worsens the patient because in critical care, you treat the patient not one system or you don't do one intervention. It's a
Absolutely.
complete patient which has to recover. But knowing only complete acute medical care is not enough to become successful intensivist. You need to understand finances because it's a high paid, highly expensive, less paid branch. Your return on like other branches, you become super specialist, you do less, you earn more. Here, you know everything, but yet is not defined how will you pay. You do hours of work on bedside, no, but you cannot claim payment because that thought is not there. But still, you need to know. So you need to understand economy. You need to understand finance better to because ultimately everything runs on finance. You need to understand psychosocial aspect of the human relationship to better coordinate because ultimately in ICU with 50% mortality, to be a winner intensivist, you need to understand the psychological aspect of the patient and its relative. You need to understand social structure better way to communicate better way. You need to understand the administrative power because as a team leader, you need to be good administrative. So ideally speaking, out of all specialty in medicine, it is the intensivist who wants to become successful must have a quality of polymath.
Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said. So hyper specialization deepens our knowledge, but breadth ensures integration. So the future generation of intensivists must be deep rooted and wide angled, not only in the medical aspects, but the psychological aspects, social aspects, and the financial aspects also. My next question to Dr. Mishra would be, which non medical discipline helps most? This is a tricky question, and
So let me tell you about so far our system has been developed like that. You become a specialist, super specialist, very super specialist, and we grow like I. But not that's not the reality. Steve Jobs was not I, he was T. Elon Musk is not I, he is T. Or any top leader who has changed the world, revolutionized the world. Mahatma Gandhi was not I, he was T. Jawaharlal Nehru was not I, he was T. They knew every aspect. So most of the very successful leader who has changed the world, they were T. When I say T, you need to know deep and wide in different aspects, and then only you can understand and run the world better. Now, coming to the intensivist, apart from deep medical knowledge, you need to understand the biotechnology better. You need to understand engineering a little bit. You need to understand very, I can say the doctors has poorest knowledge of finance. You need to understand not only basic and advanced finance, because if you don't manage your finance, howsoever you earn money you earn, at the end you remain beggar. So it should be like your money, whatever you earn, it should be earning money for you when you are sleeping. Then you can become independent. One of the biggest advantage of being polymath is brings you independence. It brings you lateral thinking, and where you can do better job and you can progress. Since I started practicing as a polymath, I know how much advantages it is. So apart from that, third is the social structure. We must understand psychology and social. We should have little bit of. Apart from that, this because as an intensivist, you are deal with technology every day. You should have little bit of understanding about the text. You cannot say that I'm not tech savvy. I cannot operate app. I cannot operate. Many time in past, I have heard people, senior people saying that we cannot even operate a election app to run the election. It's like that. So this is something like that. If you want to claim yourself a successful intensivist, you must have there certain must which you should tick to broaden your horizon like T, not like I.
Very nicely said. Very nicely said. So, leadership science improves team performance under stress. And as you said, no single discipline dominates. Context determines relevance, and we should be having a deep knowledge of all allied specialties and of all day to day care, day to day things which affect our lives. My next question to you will be: are ICU failures physiological or systemic?
So it's both, but mainly physiological. Unfortunate part is that the very limited understanding about the physiological change. We still in intensive care, in where intensive care is not really developed well or people do not understand. People try to implement the chronic physiological understanding of single organ to the acute organ dysfunction, and that's where the failure starts. Intensive care is one system, and everybody has to see it as a one single entity to get better knowledge. You cannot compartmentalize and individualize as it happened in a chronic stable patient where there's a one organ disease. Intensive care, we deal with syndrome, we deal with physiological derangement. So to deal with syndrome and physiological, we need to have a comprehensive understand of complete physiological knowledge which integrates. So as a polymath, your one of the biggest challenges integrate different things. And that's where you can beat AI. So in next generation, if you want to beat AI, you need to become polymath, because AI will not be able to integrate different information. AI will give information, but who will integrate? Who will validate that this information is correct? Not it's an intensivist, and that's where you have to uplift your level. So ICU failure is mainly physiological, but it's systemic. But it starts from physiological failure.
Thank you for the crisp answer. So, pure physiology rarely fails in isolation, but communication gaps, systemic errors, delayed escalation, and process flaws, they amplify the harm. Often, systems fail before the organ do. So, systemic context is very, very important, and our system should be sharp and crisp. This will avoid the mortality at a larger scale. Single organ, single patient would be affected by our decisions, but if our systems are in place, the harm will be less. And your answer brings us to the next question: has AI reduced polymath need?
No, AI will increase polymath. That's why to become everyone, not only me, every specialist, every super specialist will have to think like polymath to dominate AI.
Yeah,
AI should be our servant, our assistant. AI should not be our master.
absolutely.
And to you have to become master of AI to get appropriate information, you need to really become polymath to validate the information which you get from AI.
The person behind the machine remains always important. And as you said, AI will augment pattern recognition or the clinical inputs, but it cannot replace the clinical judgment. At the best, it can be a radar or a co pilot, but we will always be at the pilot seat. An intensivist. Is he or she a clinician or a crisis commander in a larger context?
Any doctor must be clinician first, than anything whatever he has developed. So our job is first crisis commander, because when patient comes to us, we don't know what is happening. And that's why intensive care is being intensive patient is approached different way. First, you have to settle down the crisis, and immediately you have to change your role as a clinician. Because until unless you don't find and fix the problem for which this patient has become so critical, patient will not get better. So we have a complex situation. We are both, and that's why you need to become a better polymath.
So we should not never forget our basics. Basics should always be very, very strong. Which one subject will say is compulsorily required to be polymath apart from medical knowledge?
Understand human being. For understanding human being, you need to have a good understanding of social and psychology. So social, psychological, financial, these are three words which we should understand to become a successful human being and better polymath.
Thank you. One question which affects us more than any other country in resource limited settings, is polymathy necessary?
In fact, I will say that developed world can afford different kind of super specialists, but India cannot. Our country like us cannot. So being polymath will be more relevant for us, more important for us. It will make us cost effective, and we will able to give benefit to more patient with our increased horizon of knowledge, with our expertise, and in less cost. Because the more people involved, things become more chaotic and things become expensive. But when one person is taking decision, he will take precise decision, relevant decision. And if you compare daily cost in any patient, one same category of patient being managed by one well-trained, well-qualified person who has got good knowledge, the daily cost of the treatment of same patient will be much lesser than same patient being managed by 5, 7, or 10 different kind of super specialists.
So resource constraints obviously demands adaptability and improvisation and multitasking. And in countries like India, especially in rural, semi-urban settings, polymathy is often survival and not a luxury. Finally, in the ICU, we must see the forest and the trees. We cannot afford to know one thing and know it only well, and we forget others. When the stakes are high, we must think on our feet and keep our eye on the bigger picture, not only in the ICU, on the patient, on the relatives, but the larger psychosocial and the economical and the ethical issues. Because in critical care, fortune favors the prepared mind, and the polymath does not jiggle knowledge, he weaves it into wisdom. This will be the final words from my side, and I'll request Dr. Mishra to give his final comments. And what does the new generation should do to engage in polymath?
What we see often, and which really I feel sometimes bad also. Look at new generation of intensives which we see which are coming. They think that just give symptomatic patient will get better or improve, and that's where you are really not doing a critical care job. Uh, Very often we see reference where diagnosis is missed or even not thought of. Patient came breathless, intubated, kept on ventilator. Even people do not have a basic understanding. So critical care is very complex branch and complex knowledge. You need to have a lot of checklist, lot of support system. You need to supervise them. Each and every team member is important. So to keep yourself free, you need to have a good team, and you need to be good polymath. You need to be really good leader. Better leader you are, better, because after certain time you need to really ensure that everything is being ticked. Anything is missed, that tricks the patient down. So my suggestion to coming generation, or my request to coming generation would be, when you are developing yourself as an intensivist, don't just think that just central line, arterial line, intubation and ventilation is that's all intensivist. This can be done by anybody. Even now post MBBS student can do all this thing comfortably. But to claim yourself a very successful and very comprehensive clinician, you need to put your blood, sweat, and soul into that. You need to deep down, you need to think every day why this patient is not getting better. What else can be done? And that can only come when you have a lateral thinking. And lateral thinking comes when you increase your horizon away from the medical books. So that's what I think.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra. It was a very candid discussion, and I thank you for the newer thoughts about polymathy, which we should be inculcating in our day-to-day practice. And thank you, viewers. Happy listening. Enjoy the session. We'll be back after with the new session soon. Thank you.
Thank you, yes, and all the best to you. And I think it's a very good initiative. We should keep on doing this kind of innovative recording for the people. At least people should get idea what is happening around the world. Thank you for this.